and revolves around the stadium and the search for a stadium. The Chicago Bears, high aspirations. They've got what they believe is their franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams, the coach, and Ben Johnson taking the next step for this team last year. And a lot of Bears fans are very optimistic about their team. A lot of Rays fans, even with the recent slide. Yesterday, we were in the house for that loss and getting swept by the Tigers. Not good. We move on. Day off today.
It was gross.
But still, a lot of high aspirations and optimism from Rays fans for how this season has started, for the most part. But where there are similarities, aside from the optimism, is the search for a new stadium and where that stadium is going to be. And it is causing consternation for us here in Tampa Bay.
Good word.
And it is certainly it's certainly doing that, the same thing in Chicago. And what we're talking about in Chicago is similar, but also a little bit different than what we're dealing with here in Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's been battling with St. Petersburg, our neighbors. We share the market, Tampa Bay, right? We consider ourselves connected with St. Petersburg. So that battle back and forth, a lot of Rays friends are like, I don't care. Like, we want it in Tampa or want it in St. Pete. We don't care as long as they don't leave. And then
I think that's where most Rays fans are, yeah.
And the potential theft would be from Orlando. That's where right now a lot of people are scared they're going to go to Orlando. But if they go to Orlando, it's an hour away. They're still in the state of Florida. They just take a drive on I-4. It's a different city, and they're going to claim it as their own. And that's, I think, what would hurt Rays fans so much is they would be the Orlando Rays and not the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, what is going on with Chicago is they are looking for a new stadium. And they might have to look outside and land outside of Illinois altogether. Two of the leading locations right now are Arlington Heights and Indiana. So if they end up moving, they're not just moving down the street. They could be moving out of the state, which is a whole different ballgame. When we talk about tax revenue, when we talk about some of the things, the impact on the market, huge. Now, I don't think they become the Indiana Bears. I think they're always going to be the Chicago Bears because, right, both these locations, yes. Sam, you've lived there. They're right down the street. They're not far.
Yeah, most people consider Hammond, Indiana, still the Chicagoland area.
So, guys, there's similarities and there's differences, and I think the main difference is if the Rays leave, they're not going to be the Tampa Bay Rays anymore. This is how I look at it. If Chicago leaves, they're still going to be Chicago Bears.
I don't even want to, I kind of hate even saying it because I obviously don't want it to happen. But if the Rays were to go to Orlando, should they do a reverse Marlins? Should they, instead of being the Orlando Rays, be the Florida Rays? I feel like you
it's
turn
smart.
You turn off less Rays fans if you become the Florida Rays.
You know what? Sometimes you're a really smart guy, Pat Donovan.
I mean, not often, but every now and then a little trickles. It's like a great defensive play from Junior Caminero. You shouldn't expect it, but every now and then it's going to happen.
That's unfair.
What do you mean? We're both brilliant in our own ways, and we're both not brilliant in our own ways.
So I do wonder, I think that would lessen the blow if they were the Florida Rays. Now, Tampa Bay fans will still be angry, but I think some of them less angry.
Isn't it going to be the Orlando Dreamers, allegedly?
That's right. They might not even be the Rays. You know what? It's a really good point.
Thing,
listen, if they turn into the Dreamers, you better never root for them. I never
a nightmare
would.
For them.
You'll become a nightmare?
If they're the Dreamers, I'll be their biggest
I need to know
nightmare.
how is that going to happen? How's that going to work?
Sam,
exactly?
self-proclaimed biggest Tampa Bay Rays fan in Tampa. How would you be? Yeah. How would you be that thorn in their side in Orlando?
No, I mean they would know nothing of me. I wouldn't.
What a nightmare!
I'm saying, in terms of making money, I would be their biggest nightmare. I wouldn't buy a single piece of merchandise. You couldn't pay me to go to a game. I wouldn't watch a single game of theirs.
Biggest nightmare.
I wouldn't. Yeah, no, I'm out.
I'm out.
I love that. I want to know further how you'd be their biggest nightmare. You're like, nah, they won't know.
The biggest Twitter troll of all time. My burner would be the least suspicious. Well, not suspicious. It would be the least hidden burner of all time if that happened.
How many burners you got?
Just one.
Has he told you his burner strategy before? It's quite interesting.
I think he has, but I don't really remember it, to be honest.
So what I'll do is if I'm on my Twitter, I will, and I see a tweet that I disagree with, or if somebody's coming at me or whatever, or somebody like a friend of mine, what I'll do is I'll bookmark the tweet, screenshot it so I can find the person's username. I flip to the burner, and I don't want any traction on like my page. So if you go on my burner, there's nothing there. I look like a ghost.
Wow.
But if you open my DMs, it's when I send them their own tweet and I just unload.
You've got this thing figured out.
Yeah, I'm a ghost.
I got to know how to do that. I got to.
That's what you
want to
do?
Yeah.
It's really
Sam's got this thing figured out.
It's therapeutic.
I know Aaron. This is way too many steps for him.
But I would
the
like
screenshot of the tweet, the switching accounts, the DM. That, by the way, a lot of these people probably never even see the DMs.
But there's a lot of people I want to talk to like this, but I can't. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to attack people like this verbally, but I can't.
That's why you do it. Because even, like, Pat, you just said they might not see the tweet, but there's also the chance that they do see it. And either way, I got to puff my chest and say what I wanted to say.
That's where I'm torn on it, because I've had conversations with Sam where I've had to, and I'm glad that he looks to me as a mentor where he'll go, hey, I'm about to send this tweet, or I'm about to put this tweet out, or I'm about to send this text. What do you think? And they'll say it, and I'll go, I think you shouldn't do any of that. That's not something you want.
So I never ask for advice before I want to do something. I just do it.
Well, I'm glad that Sam asked for the advice when it came to these texts, because sometimes the tweets and they can be harsh. I mean, this Sam Cohen of ours, like, he doesn't hold back sometimes.
But all right, so I mentioned the guy, and he actually used a word that you should never use to somebody. It was very, very rude to me. But I mentioned the guy last night on Twitter, right, that like, got after me for congratulating Coach Cooper with super hard to win with 10-plus All-Stars every year. You effing bleep. I replied to him, and I said, so I shouldn't congratulate coaches on their accomplishments if they have good teams? I was like, who wins this award with bad teams? I was like, this is the first time he's ever won it. Despite all the talent, you half-wit. I called him a half-wit. It felt very good to call him a half-wit.
Wake up, idiot!
I feel like had I just DM'd this dude with an account he had no idea was tied to me in any way, I would feel no gratification at all for calling him a half-wit if he just thought it was some random, first of all, it probably looks like a bot if it's a ghost account. Like, that doesn't, like, there's no impact there. But me calling him a half-wit to his face as me, there was some gratification there.
I win 1-0.
I don't know if I won, but I felt better about it.
If you feel better about it, that's a win to me.
But the DM, though, Pat, the things that you wanted to say but you couldn't say because you're a front-facing public celebrity, you could say that on the ghost DM and not get in trouble for it.
Yeah, I guess. There's not much more other than half-wit that I wanted to say to that guy. Like, I'm not that mad about him being a moron. Like, I needed to let him know he was a moron, in my opinion. But there's nothing that, like, I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I needed to say really disgusting things to the man.
Didn't make you feel better at all by doing that,
It
though.
did. Yeah,
It did.
I kind of liked it.
It is nice.
A little better, but I liked it.
If you like it, then that counts.
I don't want to hide behind it, though. You know what I mean?
You know me. I'll send something and then immediately regret it and then immediately think about it all day. Like, I'm a head case with that stuff. It's a real problem. So I don't know if I could do the burner accounts. You're right. One, I'm too lazy to do that many steps.
Yes.
And two, when it comes to technology, I don't like doing that. And then two, and then I worry, like, dude, did I send it from my real account? Did I send, and I'd be checking my real account like 4 times to make sure I didn't send it from my real account. Yeah, it's a lot of problems that are presented with this. A ton. A lot of problems presented with the stadium search here for both teams. For the Rays, you're seeking a ballpark in the area, in Tampa Bay right now. But they got to figure out the money with it. In Chicago, you could end up in Arlington Heights. You could end up in Hammond, Indiana. This is a very slippery slope for Bears fans. So when we think about what we're dealing with,
I wonder though, because like he said, right? It's Chicago land. They kind of look at it as one big area and very inclusive, whereas we don't look at Orlando as part of Tampa Bay in any fashion, right? Like, I feel like it might be very different from that standpoint.
which is crazy because one of them you're crossing state lines, and one of them, and the one situation you think you're kind of insinuating is worse, implying is the Rays situation where they're not crossing state lines.
But are they crossing I-4?
They're crossing the war on I-4. They're crossing into enemy territory.
Not the Rays. Chicago fans. What they're doing is it as much of a pain in the ass. Because I think there's a lot of Rays fans, as upset as they would drive to Orlando if it wasn't such an enormous pain in the ass. But people look at that and what it's like whenever they drive to Disney or whenever they do anything in Orlando, and they're like, "Oh God, this is terrible."
Yeah.
They don't want to go through that to be a Rays fan every year, right?
Right.
If it's not as bad in the Chicago, and I don't know exactly what the traffic's like around there, but if it's a trip that doesn't bother you, if it's easy to do, it's also once a week. I think it makes it a lot easier for Bears fans than it would for Rays fans to accept.
But for the Rays right now, we're not talking about Orlando as like we know that they're looming. But right now, the conversation really in Tampa is how are they going to come up with the funding and make sure that this thing passes? Because they know where they want the ballpark to be. It is very close in the Tampa area in that Hillsborough College location. We're right there at the finish line. The
Where
Bears
it needs to be.
Yeah, and the Bears, though, are not at the finish line. The Bears right now, they're deciding where potentially they will even build that stadium. They're still in that process. So I think the Rays right now, if you're a Rays fan and you're looking at these two situations, that the Rays looking for the stadium, the Bears looking for a new stadium, both a lot of similarities, but the main difference is I think the Rays are closer right now to solidifying this in Tampa Bay, whereas I don't think Chicago, the Bears are close. I think they're moving further away.
I agree with you, but also it still feels more dire for us because the conversation is, will we lose the Rays? And I don't think that's the conversation in Chicago anywhere, right? Like, it may move across a state line and it may move a little further away, but I don't think it's like, oh, no, we're going to lose our Bears. And I feel like for Braves fans, it is, oh, no, we could lose our Rays.
888-388-0957 if you want to jump aboard the conversation. Sam, you live there. Does it feel like what Pat was just describing there?
Yeah, I mean, I still have buddies up there, and they don't see it that way because, again, Hammond, like I've said on the show before, there was a golf course up there that I love that the LPGA played events at, so I would go. It was cheap because playing golf in Chicago is ridiculous.
When you say they don't see it that way, you mean like they think that it would still, even if it's in Hammond or a different place, it would still be theirs.
Team.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually think, among my friends at least, they look at that as a better option than the Arlington Heights because getting out to Arlington Heights, it is like I-4 times 10.
Really?
Chicago traffic. There's always construction on the highways. It's an absolute nightmare driving out there. So Hammond's not that bad. The reason it stinks when you compare it to the Rays thing is because the big hubdub about tax dollars and actual revenue, that's a major franchise. Chicago's, and you alluded to it, Aaron, that's a lot of tax dollars you're losing
right
if they go over to Hammond, Indiana.
And I think that's the biggest issue with them right there. Absolutely, no doubt about it. When you think about both these stadiums searches, the similarities that I'm seeing, even though it's football and baseball, is, and this is the way of the future, and this is how you have to do it. Both of them don't just want a stadium. They want everything that's going to be around the stadium in the redevelopment.
Why wouldn't you, right?
Why would you not? In this day and age, you have to. You cannot just build a stadium. If you're looking for public dollars, you can't do it. And if you're spending private dollars, you shouldn't do it because it's not going to work.
From an NFL standpoint, the NFL's made it clear they're not going to put a Super Bowl in a place like, I don't know, Jacksonville, where there's a stadium and not much around it.
Nothing.
Right? Like, it's okay around it, but it's really not. There's not much going on in Jacksonville. They're not going to put Super Bowls in places like that anymore. And the Buccaneers, that's part of why they want a mixed development thing around Raymond James Stadium as part of their deal. And if the Rays get their deal, it's going to be right there for the Bucs. Maybe they can expand on it. Maybe they can do even more in that area. But regardless, like, you're not just going to be able to have a stadium, and not that Ray J's in the middle of nowhere, but without amazing infrastructure around it and host a Super Bowl. And that might not affect Chicago all that often because they're not going to get a bunch of Super Bowls. But the NFL's shown if you put a beautiful brand new stadium, even in a cold weather area, they will put a Super Bowl there. And that's a big deal.
No doubt. And if you make the experience around it, Pat, great, like you're talking about, then yeah, the NFL's going to want it there even more because it's just going to make sense to have big events there where people are going to just show up and be around it, and they don't have to go to the game to actually be spending money and purchasing whatever that sport is, purchasing items or whatever it is, just going out and spending money and being around it, growing the sport. Baseball's even more so. Like both stadiums, though, I think any stadium in the future, any arena, we look at what they built up in Channelside and Water Street around Benchmark International Arena. You have to, in this day and age, do stuff around it and the mixed-use development. And that's where I see a lot of the similarities and why they're not budging in Chicago. They want to make sure they're giving themselves the best chance to have all that around it.
And this is where I keep going back to being so confused by people who don't want this ballpark to succeed and don't want this thing to be built. Because when you mention Water Street and Channelside, Water Street and Midtown combined are going to be significantly smaller than this new project, which, as we know, is going to be will be hopefully the largest project in the history of Hillsborough County. How anybody looks at that as a negative, like, listen, if it was somewhere where they wanted to try to shoehorn it in, where it's, basically a residential area and they're going to blow a bunch of people out of their homes and all this kind of stuff, totally, I would understand why a lot of people would be against that. That area is barren. That area is like there's nothing going on over there. We're a major city, and we should have nice things. And why wouldn't we want something that's bigger than Channelside and Water Street and Midtown put together? I don't know why.
And I think one of the biggest differences that we haven't talked about when it comes to these, situations, one in Chicago for the Bears and one in here in Tampa Bay with the Rays, the Rays leaving the Trop. I know a lot of us, when it happens, will look back and be like, oh, man, we really like the Trop, missed the Trop. There's nothing.
I like the Trop now.
Even though there's a lot of history in baseball tied to Tampa and St. Pete, I don't feel like the Trop, we look at that site in that area and be like, baseball has to be there. It's history. It's historic. Chicago's a little bit different. I think it's for and now, once again, I don't live there. I never lived there. I don't know. Sam, you could probably tell me more since you live there. Just like Wrigley, just like some of the things that you see in Chicago and major cities, you just can't imagine not having your sport there that's been there for so long. You have to get a new stadium. You have to revamp everything. But losing that team from your city, it's tough.
I look at that with Lambeau Field. I feel differently about Chicago because I don't think, to me, Soldier Field is not quite as historic. And they've already kind of, like, they did renovations right around when they went to the Super Bowl with Rex Grossman. And they changed that building dramatically. Am I right, Sam? And to me, that takes away from that historicness. You've already made it look more like a modern building. And now if I were a Chicago Bears fan, which I'm not at all, I don't think I'd have the same reverence for that building because it's not the same as like Lambeau Field, which is exactly the same as it's always been.
I think it's building and area too combined.
It is. The one thing about Chicago and Soldier Field is like in the true downtown area over by like the Shed Aquarium in that area. Wrigley is its own thing because it's one of the few stadiums, like you mentioned, Pat, with Lambeau Field. It is literally in the middle of a neighborhood. And so it's got a different feel to it. And the ownership group, when they took over, they've blown out a couple of the areas to try to build stores and all the different things. But Wrigley has a cool feel because it is literally surrounded by people's homes.
Wrigley is the only sporting event I've ever wanted to go to and not go to. I've always wanted to be at on one of those rooftops that overlooks Wrigley Field. Like that is as unique as you get in sports, and I love that.
It's like me at Janice Live wanting to watch a concert from one of those balconies over there. Let's go to Jim in Newport Rich. He wants to chime in. What's up, Jim?
Hey, good morning, guys. Listen, I got to tell you something. Being a New York Giants fan, we hate it that they play in New Jersey. And my friends that are Jet fans, they hate it equally as well. The people of Chicago, they're always going to be Chicago Bear fans, and they're going to follow their team. However, once you move them out of the city, it's just a different feel. It's a different vibe. And it just doesn't feel right. Years later, it still doesn't feel right.
Where Jim, let me ask you this. In New York, where would you suggest for it to feel right if the Giants and Jets were playing in New York as opposed to right outside in New Jersey? What would feel right for you?
Oh, I'll be honest with you. Where they could have done it at the time is my old neighborhood in Whitestone, Queens, is Flushing, where the Mets play.
Yeah.
There was plenty of room where now, of course, there's Citi Field, and they're building all those casinos and everything. But there was land there, and there was also another spot by the old Pepsi Cola place. I believe it was in Manhattan. I used to see it off the bridge. Haven't been home in many years. But they had a proposal for the Jets there, but the people didn't want to pay the taxes on it. So what did they have to do? they went out to Jersey, and like I said, it's never going to be like what it was, and the Chicago people are going to understand that. Personally, I hope the Bears stay in Chicago. But then again, I'm old school, guys.
Hey, thank you, Jim. We like you just the way you are. I think, and Jim obviously feels differently. I think a lot of Jets and Giants fans don't care that it's in New Jersey because it's with public transportation, with the way transportation is, like you get there.
Yeah, and it's just as much of a pain in the ass to move around New York than it is to pop over to New Jersey.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's just outside the city. It's not that crazy. So yeah, a lot of similarities. The reason we're having this conversation. Chicago looking for a new stadium. The Bears looking for a new stadium. They might be going outside of state lines to do it. The Rays would be within state lines as we're seeing it right now. Unfortunately, it would be Orlando, and they wouldn't even be called the Orlando Rays. It'd be the Orlando Dreamers. A great point made by Sam earlier.
Like you were saying about the Jets and Giants, like if Orlando was 20 minutes away, would you care? Would you care if they were the Orlando Rays if it was 20 minutes away? I don't know that I would.
I would.
If I could still be there every day, like if I could still whenever I want, make it easy, like I wouldn't love it.
Would you rather them be the Orlando Rays 20 minutes away or the Tampa Bay Rays in Orlando?
The Orlando Rays 20 minutes away. I'll go to more Orlando Rays games, and it doesn't make sense, obviously, because this can't be true. But like, if they were to have to change the name to Orlando, but it's still like right down the street, yeah, give me that over keeping the name Tampa Bay, but moving an hour and a half away.
Would you rather the Rays be 20 minutes away and be called the Orlando Rays, or be in Orlando called the Tampa Bay Rays